I started this company at this point, it's going to be 8 years this coming April. So roughly, 7.5 years, you might say. In the 8 years that we've been doing this work, we have placed close to 150 veterans in different brands across the country.
Wow.
Is a smaller subsection comes from 100 entrepreneurs. These veterans, they are in companies as different as you can imagine, one from the other. So food and beverage is a very popular one, right? Everybody thinks of McDonald's. Walt, you asked about McDonald's, I think, right? Everybody thinks about the golden arches, but there's so much more to franchising than food and beverage. Home services, restoration, children's businesses, senior care, healthcare, fitness, wellness. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Bob, you mentioned Jiffy Lube.
Yeah.
So one of the founders of Jiffy Lube is a friend of mine. He also, not accidentally, happens to be the president of Babson College, the number one college for entrepreneurship in
Yep.
the country,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
Stephen Spinelli. And he talks about his journey founding Jiffy Lube. But again, that's a wonderful example. Automotive industry, they are a global brand. We have worked closely with veterans in no small measure because of you guys and the relationship that we have built over the years. It continues to be a mainstay in the work that we do. For those of you who know me, I am not a veteran. I have no idea why, but I jive with you all. There's like a vibe, there's a chemistry. I don't know what it is. Bob likes to say it's because Faizun does not like BS, and neither do we, and that's why we get along so well. I think that is absolutely partly true. So everybody who comes to us, they think it begins with us giving you a list of franchises, and it absolutely doesn't. The vehicle is franchising, but the process that we take each client through is pure education. And so what we do, it begins with a series of assessments. Franchising is a very specific form of entrepreneurship, right? It has a playbook. You have to be able to follow the playbook. This is not fly by the seat of your pants. There are many people we find as they go through the process, they realize this is not for me. I don't want to have to follow a playbook. Faizun, the reason why I'm leaving corporate is so I can go do my own thing. That's fine. But if you are either unwilling or unable to follow a playbook, a franchise is not going to be the right option for you. We can only uncover those things, though, Walt, through this process, this very specific process. It's a 6-step process that we take clients through. Once we do a series of assessments, we do a deep dive on you, where we go through a bunch of questions related to, Walt, what have you done? What do you do currently? What does your background look like? What kind of skill sets are you bringing to the table? What would you consider are your strengths and your weaknesses? If money, resources, nothing was an issue, what do you see yourself doing? What does that look like, right? Through a series of guided questions we take you through, we essentially start to put together, Walt, a picture of what does Walt look like within a franchised setting. Once we have that first part figured out, then we start to say, then we drill down. So in our inventory, Walt, we currently partner with over 600, close to 650 different franchises. And literally any and across any industry you can imagine. So if you came to me today and you said, Faizun, I'm looking for blah, 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 it's going to take us a little bit of time for me to start funneling you down because we have so many, many options. And this is a very guided, specific process that we take clients through that allows you to find the right fit, start to finish. On average, it takes clients about 90 days from when we start, 90 days, when we begin to when we place you in a brand. As part of the process that we take clients through, Walt, there are a couple of other key things. Bob alluded to it earlier when he said, there's some really good brands, but then there's a lot of flim-flam. How do you get away from the flim-flam? The due diligence that we have our clients go through allows you to investigate the brands that we present to you at a very granular level. As a franchisee, what would I be doing in the day-to-day? How much money am I investing in the brand? When I give you the royalties every month, ABC franchise, in return, what am I getting? What kind of support are you guys giving me? Super important to understand these things in the right. So 90 days. We also will introduce you, very importantly, to 2 resources. We have a funding concierge who's appeared, actually, she's been on these workshops before. Franchise funding is a very different animal than getting a mortgage, getting a car note. We lead you through that process so that we understand you have a couple of different options to be able to fund the franchise once we find it. That's one. The second thing we want to do as you get close to the end of your search process is, before you sign anything, before you get super excited about a brand and say, Faizun, this is the one for me, stop. Let us have you sit down with a franchise attorney. They are going to review the legal contract that you're going to be signing with the brand. And with their legal eyes, they tell you, yes, I see some potential red flags, or no, everything that's in this contract is pretty standard. There's nothing here that feels super onerous to me. Like an executive headhunter or a realtor. So in this scenario, the seller, the franchise, you're the buyer, the seller pays for our services because we have brought you to them and you are a financially vetted, well-qualified candidate so that they have not had to dig through and do what they needed to do to be able to find you. No candidate ever fronts the whole amount. So to use your example, if your all-in investment is 200,000, you are required to come to the table with a percentage of what's called the franchise fee. So you come in with, so let me take that back. A franchise fee is a one-time fee that you pay to any brand that you join. Once you join, you then pay royalties every month, and that's a percentage of your monthly gross sales. Back up to the franchise fee. The franchise fee needs to be funded in its entirety before you can begin. That fee, Walt, I have seen fees literally in every increment you can think of, on the low end from 10,000 all the way to 99,000 and everything else in between. The franchise fee is what you are required to put down. So when we get you with our funding concierge, what she tries to do is to say, okay, Walt, you have a 401k and you have money sitting there. That's actually one of the most popular ways a candidate will fund. It's called a rollover. You might be sitting on some cash. And given the amount of the investment, you might say, I want to start the business debt-free. I'll just pay all cash. We've had candidates who've taken money. I think it's called the TSP, if I'm not mistaken. I am not a funding guru, so this is a little bit mysterious for me. But these are some of the big categories. Somebody else mentioned, Judge Farley mentioned SBA at one point. You can get an SBA loan. So there are a variety of mechanisms. I don't particularly care how you fund the franchise. I do care that you have viable funding mechanisms so that the work we are doing is not going to be for naught. However, it's a program called VetFran. What those are not every brand. Brands self-select, where if you're a veteran and you come in and join them, you are going to get a percentage taken off of the franchise fee that you're going to be paying them. And in many cases, this discounts can be pretty significant. So currently, Bob, we have, if you want to think of it as sort of 3 service verticals that we have. So the first would be what Walt and I were talking about, and that's called franchise consulting, helping candidates find the right franchise to invest into. The second piece of the work we do is called franchise development. This is where we work with business owners. There's a number of things we vet out in the beginning to try and understand if this would be an appropriate client, but businesses that are at a certain point in their growth cycle where they say, I'm ready to take the business national. I want to grow and expand. And I think my expansion strategy is by turning my business into a national franchise brand. We take those brands through a 5-month journey from start to finish. And over the 5 months, we essentially put in place the foundational elements that any franchise model needs, including all of the legal documentation. So franchising is a highly regulated industry. The Trade Commission is our regulatory body, and it says before you, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, can sell yourself as a franchise, you need to have in place certain legal documents. we put those documents together. In addition, Walt, I mentioned that a franchise is all about the playbook. You have to follow the playbook. We put that playbook together for these business owners. How is it that you do what you do? What are your SOPs? What are your best practices? Because this becomes the ops manual, the training manual that every potential franchisee that comes into your system, they're going to be able to use that. In addition, we put together their go-to-market strategy. So you are a business. When we turn you into its most optimized franchise form, how do you market? How do you let people know that you exist? How do you generate potential leads and get more people to come investigate your brand? We do a couple of other key things, but those would be the big sort of buckets of work that we do for clients. So 5 months, take them through the process. At the end of that, when we spit you out, you are ready to go to market as a national franchise brand. Over the course of the 8 years, Walt, we have placed, I want to say, around 150 different veterans into different businesses. Per year, I would say total veteran and non-veteran clients, we probably place around 50 to 75 people. Keep in mind, many clients also end up buying multiple franchises. Now, this is brand. Sometimes they'll buy multiple units of the same brand, but many do what we refer to as stacking. In fact, one of our clients, he's a veteran, met him, Bob, at one of our sessions at Fort Belvoir, many years ago. Yes. So he came. He started first with a pest control franchise. 6 months later, he came back and he stacked the pest control franchise with a dryer vent cleaning franchise. You might be like, what? How do the two, how does that even go together? If you start to think about what the service offering is, you go into a client's home and you are eradicating their pest issue. So you're looking at all the dark, yucky places. Well, one of the dark, yucky places you look into is in the bathroom or wherever your washer and dryer machines are. And so when you do that, the question becomes, hey, Mrs. Kamal, did you know that your dryer vent is literally a fire hazard? Like, you need to clean that stuff out. By the way, this happened to me, Walt, which is why I can speak to it so eloquently. We did get a fire in our bathroom. I didn't know this was a thing. But by stacking, you are able to consolidate your expenses because you're now marketing to the exact same client for 2 different services. As we get into 2024, I think the home services space is going to continue to soar. It is one of the most robust industries or subsections within franchising. So when I say home services, I mean, if you're a homeowner or you live in a home, think of all the services that we need. And there's literally a franchise for every single one of those services. So I think those are going to continue to be really hot. Senior care, we have seen explode for not, you can imagine why, right? Healthcare, health-related industries, we've seen a real increase in, whether it's, brands that do various sorts of simple lab testing, like, different kinds of blood, COVID, etc., all the way to, getting drips in your arm, different types of drips, vitamin, IVs, etc. A plethora. Yeah, I know. Google those. You'll be amazed at what comes up. And very interestingly enough, I think as we head into 24, another space that we have seen explode since the pandemic would be the sort of that beauty, wellness, med spa space. So, what do you call it? I hate the word, deprivation chambers. You stick yourself in there. Yeah, it's like dark and cold in the cold. Yeah, no. Very profitable models. I ain't getting in one of those. So that's one. Saunas, heat therapy. So when you start to think of like non-traditional health-related types of things, we have seen a huge surge in businesses like that.